The Sons of Iron chapter is the 26th founding successor chapter of the Iron Hands. Hailing from the perilous world of Suomi, the Sons have begun to gain a reputation among the kin of Ferrus Manus as the effective chapter whose sole and yet infamous stain is their beliefs tantamount to heresy in the eyes of the Iron Hands and many of their successors, while the Imperium at large considers them as a cold and unforgiving gathering of devoted space marines exemplifying the better traits from their progenitor without the strained relationships which are often the lot of Ferrus Manus lineage. Like all those who bear the seed of Manus, they feel the drive to replace their flesh with bionics, but try to resist it, a strain which adds to their already grim demeanor. Centuries before the 26th foundation, the High Lords of Terra gather to discuss the necessity to strengthen the borders of the Imperium thanks to new chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. Although the High Lords were guided by the divine will of the Emperor, the question of the gene seed which would be used to create the new chapters was problematic, for the intentions of the God of Mankind were unclear at the beginning. Only after decades of discussions did the tarot of the Emperor begin to reveal the choices necessary for the future protection of the Emperor. Among those revelations was the necessity to attach a chapter using the Iron Hands gene seed on the ravaged world of Suomi in the southwestern corner of the Ultima Segmentum. One of the most common informations reappearing countless times was the short poem. And the Lord of Tempest will awaken. At his side, his armies of undefeated forgotten. The sons of the Hands of Iron will stand against him, and mankind rampant won't fall at his whim. The terrors of the past, broken by the Sons of Iron, born out of Steel's rejection. However, those choices created some tensions, for the representative of the Mechanicus saw in the use of Ferrus Manus gene seed in a new chapter the means to strengthen their ties with the Iron Hands and other successor chapters. To the contrary, the Ecclesiarch and the Inquisitorial Legate tried to fight the Mechanicus influence and managed to obtain that the new chapter, codenamed Chapter number 956, would follow the Codex Astartes and thus possess Chaplains and Tech Marines with separate roles instead of Iron Fathers. After decades of discussion on this point and hundreds of others concealing all the chapters from the Foundation, the preparations were finally launched, the forges of the Mechanicum crafting the weapons, armors, and equipment for the future chapters. The Iron Hands chapter was thus contacted so he could grant the chapter number 956 its first cadre of superior officers. All of them were recruited in the Sorgol clan from the Iron Hands as a means to ensure that the possibilities of future division in clans instead of companies in the still unburned chapter would be kept in minimals. Among the selected officers were Clan Commander Carden Roth, designated to be the future chapter master, Tech Marine Arvin Stronos, promoted Master of the Forge, Archivist Comac Talaman, who was nominated at the position of Master Archivist, and Sergeant Joseph Santor, who became a chaplain, becoming the de facto Master of the Faith for the nascent chapter. The selected Iron Hands were trained to ensure their capacity to rule the chapter 956. In 738 M41, when the Foundation was made official, the Iron Hands left Medusa to Suomi so they could begin the recruitment. The officers then gathered and named their chapter the Sons of Iron. From this day, the chapter's symbol remained unchanged, a stylized black spear with a double crossguard whose pommel encased a black skull. The early years of the chapter were tumultuous, to say the least. The recruits from Suomi proved headstrong and abrasive, refusing to compromise their beliefs, brought from more than 10,000 years of devotion to the Emperor and the parchment of Namerol. The former Iron Hands commanding them were left with a cruel dilemma. Either purge the first recruits to replace them with new ones under a stricter psycho-conditioning, or accept at least some of their beliefs. It was the fact that Carden Roth himself saw the killing of the first aspirants as both a bad omen and, more importantly, a waste of resources for the chapter which spared their lives. During the 20 years that the chapter spent building itself, it mainly partook in small raids against smugglers and pirates of low importance in the sector, as to train its new warriors to cement the relations between the former Iron Hands and the Suomi. However, the difficulties persisted until the time that Joseph Santor truly converted himself to the beliefs of the Suomi and managed to convince most of the upper echelons of the chapter to do so. The armors of the chapter were then painted anew, and the Sons of Iron were truly born. The Sons of Iron's strength had been tested and it had failed them. Indeed, the very last massive operation they took part in before the creation of the Imperium Nihilus, the Clash of Iron from 995 to 999 M41, saw the Second Company suffer atrocious losses against the mechanical cohorts of the pirate lord Thazar the Invincible from the Sarnac dynasty of the Necrons. 58 members of the chapter were killed, the world they were tasked to protect stripped of their citizens and resources by the Xenas. Most terrible of all was the loss of Tuwali, an agri-world where all the citizens were killed for having refused to bend the knee before the mechanical invaders. It was on this world that 24 of the Astartes died in vain. This sounding defeat is a stark contrast with the Purge of Tainted Steel, which saw the chapter as a whole waging a war of extermination against the Necron dynasty of the Atankar with the help of various chapters, millions of guardsmen, and even Deathwatch kill teams from the awakening of the dynasty in 788 M41 to its final destruction in 813 M41, when the last crypt was destroyed on the dead world of Thanos 6. The chapter then vowed for the first time an oath of eternal hatred against the Sarnac dynasty. It is almost certain that in the future the chapter will gather to hunt down those specific Necrons. The return of Guilliman, well hailed as a glorious time for the Imperium, has brought despair to Lord of the Sons of Iron. Cardenrath chose to travel to Terra to speak with the Primarch when news of his return reached Suami. Once he had reached Terra, the chapter master from Suami petitioned for an audience with Guilliman. After weeks of waiting, his wish was granted. In the most sacred halls of the Imperial Palace, under the unflinching gaze of custodians and Macragge's honor guards, Routh knelt and dared to ask but 2 questions to the brother of Ferrus Manus. Was the Gorgon the author of the Parchment of Nymeral, and was he alive as his brother? To the first question, presented with an original copy from the parchment, Guilliman answered that it was indeed his brother's thoughts which had been written down, or at least thought he had during a period of time. At this, Routh's heart pumped blood faster, for he knew that he was doing his father's work in resisting against his urges to replace flesh by metal. But the answer to the second question almost broke the inflexible. The Gorgon was dead. Killed on Istvan 5, and nothing could bring him back from his final rest. This devastated Routh, and he knew that his brothers would be too. Still, to lie to them would have been weakness. Departing Terra after his encounter with Guilliman, Routh was caught in the creation of the Cicatrix Maledictum. His vessel was almost destroyed by the waves of the Imperium, but it still managed to reach Suami, a mere 2 days after his initial departure. Temporal anomalies were wreaking havoc in the whole Augrian Rift, some planets almost stuck in a phasic field, while others were experimenting decades as hours went by on Suami. Even in those desperate times, the Inflexible hesitated. Should he broach the truth to his chapter, or keep it for himself, bearing his burden alone? It had taken him the whole travel from Terra to Suami, surrounded by the 200 eager Primaris who, born from the gene seed of the Iron Hands themselves, were to reinforce his chapter, so that it may wage war evermore in the name of the Emperor and Terra. Finally, he managed to reach a decision. As resilient as his chapter was, he doubted that the news of Ferrus Manus being dead could be taken in stride. The belief of his return was too ingrained among the common Suami themselves. The Sons of Iron would be devastated, their hope dashed, but in that time of despair, Carden Routh found the words to reignite their spirits without sharing the weight of his burden. Since the return of their chapter master, the Sons of Iron have learned of the Primaris founding, as while they were both circumspect and strangely proud of being part of a founding which wasn't the last one, they did not let this stop their efforts. Planets after planets in the Augrian Rifts and beyond have been defended, purged, or reinforced by the Sons of Iron, and with the coming of a full company of Primaris Astartes to bolster their strength, the Space Marines of Suami are ever more willing to protect the Imperium. Having been founded in extremely recent years, comparatively to the Astartes and Imperium history, the Sons of Iron organization is almost totally Codex compliant, with well-defined roles for each company, and ranks inside said companies. The principal differences compared to more traditional chapters, but also with the Iron Hands from whom they have been created, is the existence of chaplains and tech marines called Iron Remembrances, who share their spiritual role. The chaplains preaching the chapter's beliefs, while the Iron Remembrances exalt their brothers' hatred towards their foes and the disappearance of the Primarch. Such organization is an obvious legacy from the Iron Hands, despite the heavy influence of the High Lords of Terror's wishes and Suomi traditions. Such importance for the chaplains and Iron Remembrances explains why the apothecaries and archivists don't possess a preponderant role in the chapter. The chaplains themselves are particularly compared to those from other chapters in different ways, the most obvious being that their armors aren't dyed black, but in a blue-grey color, a difference explained by the Suomi culture, which influenced the chapter, and their great number, since each company possesses 3 full-fledged chaplains, hierarchically organized as first, second, and third chaplains, all under the Master of the Faith, one of the most important figures in the chapter, while there is at least 2 Iron Remembrances in each company. Another particular trait among the Sons of Iron is the High Strategic Council created during the last 100 years, another legacy from the Iron Hands, since the HSC is created to balance the chapter master's powers and prevent one to ever damn the entire chapter. The HSC is composed of 10 captains, the 10 first chaplains, the chapter master, and the Master of the Faith, who all can vote to make decisions. While the Iron Remembrances and Master of the Forge, the archivists and apothecaries can't vote, they obviously have influence over their representatives from their own companies. Among the many duties that belong to the HSC is the choice of the new chapter master when the previous one dies, something that hasn't happened yet. Finally, the last difference with the Codex Astartes is the rank of Iron Sergeant, bestowed upon the sergeant from the first squad in each company, which is designated as the putative heir from his captain, should the latter fall. While the return of Guilliman has brought a great deal of turmoil for the Sons of Iron, the arrival of the Primaris Space Marines has been hailed unanimously as a miraculous gift. With the Imperium shattered and besieged as never before, the Sons of Iron had found themselves beset on all sides and would not have endured if not for the timely arrival of a full company of Primaris Marines wearing unpainted armors to Suomi aboard the newly crafted battle barge Honor of Suomi, returning with Cardan Routh. Those warriors were a part of those sent by Guilliman to replenish losses suffered by conventional chapters, and specifically the Sons of Iron, for the Lord Commander had learnt of the Clash of Iron and its cost to the Astartes of Suomi. When the news of the new founding had reached their ears, the Sons had feared that they would be made irrelevant, but this gift has bolstered their morale. The Primaris had been mostly affected to the second company of Alvar Hagström, but the 1st, 5th and 8th companies also received reinforcements from those newly arrived brothers. The coming of the Primaris had been followed by intense scrutiny and an initial period of distrust, for those warriors had been born in tubes and had not endured the harsh life of the Suomi-borns. This period was not to last longer than a few months, for when the AI of Suomi rose anew after decades of relative peace, the Primaris joined the fray eagerly, wishing to prove their worth to their elder brothers. Led by Sergeant Aurelio Telsius, they demonstrated their usefulness on the battlefield and were quickly welcomed. Only the survivors of the Clash of Iron had voiced their disdain for the new Marines, mainly because they feel that replacing their fallen brothers by those upstarts is insulting to their memory. The captain and the officers of the second company have taken harsh measures to silence those insults, but the Primaris of the second will have to prove their worth in the heat of true war before they are accepted as equals by their comrades. To the stupor of the normal Astartes of the chapter, the Sons of Iron Primaris have proven to be extremely respectful and even awed by their elder brother's accomplishments, a behavior the Sons of Iron are known to have reserved to vaunted chapter of most ancient founding, among which those of the Ironclad Brotherhood. This behavior has pushed the officers of the chapter to even greater length of devotion, especially the 5th captain. While the Sons of Iron do not wish to see their original gene seed be replaced by those of their Primaris brothers, the number of the latter is bound to grow in the decades to come, should the chapter endure this time of troubles. Since the last decade or so, the chapter has openly hesitated on the decision to only induct new Primaris, only stopped by the relatively hard-to-put-in-place flow of supply needed to equip them. However, under the surprising push of 2nd Captain Marius Aurelius, the High Strategic Council has agreed that Firstborn still need to be recruited to ensure a steady supply of Terminators, Centurions, and even a few assault squads. Surprisingly, this choice was not based on some sentimental thinking, even if many suspected that the current Lord Inflexible was indeed moved by this idea, but a pure practical standpoint. A homogeneous chapter being easier to confront for their foes, and while the Firstborns aren't the equal of the Primaris, they can ascend to the stage, so nothing is truly lost by keeping a healthy pool of 200 Firstborns in the chapter. The Sons of Iron culture is a strange amalgamation of both the Iron Hands traditions and the Suami beliefs, leading to the difficult first years that the chapter underwent, when it seemed that neither the Medusians nor the Suami among them would ever manage to work as one. Thankfully for the chapter, the conversion of the chapter master and most of the former Iron Hands allowed the end of this troubled era. From their father chapter, but also the very traditions of Suami, the Sons of Iron inherited a great hatred towards weakness of any kind, with a particular disgust for mental weaknesses. This explains why they particularly loathe heretics and traitors, believing them to be so weak of mind that they fail to shoulder the actions necessary to the protection of the Imperium and mankind itself. However, this loathing of mental weakness is also directed inward, for the Sons of Iron suffer, like all the chapters hailing from Ferrus Manus' gene seed, and need to replace their biological body parts with bionic. Such a need is seen as a great and shameful weakness because of the Suami history of vicious wars against intelligent robots and the teachings contained in the parchment of Naerina, the most sacred text of the chapter, said to have been written by the Primarch himself, where he exposed that his hands weren't his own. Therefore, the Sons of Iron believe that their Primarch's hands were tainted by Necron technology, signaling the wishes of Ferrus Manus to put an end to the ever-growing tendency of his own legion to replace their limbs with bionics, his sole guide explaining how to secure the return of the Primarch. Indeed, the Sons of Iron believe that Ferrus Manus is still alive, for during the Eastfront 5 massacre, he understood the taint of his hands, rejected it, and temporarily achieved a state of power so great that even the arch-heretic Horus fled before him. Alas, Ferrus was separated from his sons and barely managed to flee the world. The Sons of Iron believe that the Gorgon is still alive, somewhere in the galaxy, trying to remove the Necron's taint on his hands once and for all. However, such a monumental task can be achieved only with the destruction of all the Necrons and the enlightenment of at least some of his sons. That's why the Sons of Iron swore to purge the galaxy of the Necron and to resist their drive for bionics use. Despite such an oath, the use of bionics is higher than average among the chapter, while the chaplains claim that, by replacing their flesh with metal, they can achieve a state not unlike the one felt by the Primarch during the Great Crusade, when he wrote the parchment of Naerina. Therefore, it is far from uncommon to see a Son of Iron in prayer trying to connect to the Gorgon thanks to his bionics. In fact, their archivists claim that by doing so, they are able to reach their Primarch's mind and then receive his instructions to achieve their purification. Another practice among the chapter is the replacement of half a skull and one eye of every brother, achieving the rank of sergeant or above, usually the right part of the skull, as a means to prove their devotion to the Primarch, the Emperor, and the Imperium as a whole. The traditions of Suami interfered greatly with the chapter's formative years, especially during the 21st years of its existence. During this time, the Sons of Iron livery bore a lot of similitude with the Iron Hands, for the armor was clad in black, except for the shoulder pads, left arm, and left knee, which had the color of iron, and the right knee, which was painted in very dark metallic color. However, on Suami, the black is either the color of robotic armies or the color of exile and loneliness. Therefore, the brothers from Suami rejected this livery. It was only when the former Iron Hands converted to the parchment of Naerina and the creed it had induced among the Suami brothers that the livery was changed. 20 years after the foundation, the armor is repainted to the actual colors, the bone white representing death and purity among the Suami, while the icy blue is a reminder of the almost ever-present toxic clouds in the skies of their homeworld. However, the Sons joining the Death Watch accept willingly to paint their armor black, and the champions of companies and the chapter retain some part of the original livery. their shoulder pads and right arms are still painted in iron. Another change brought to the traditional Iron Hands behavior is the greater leniency during the purges. Even if the Sons of Iron are still far from the Salamanders or Space Wolves behaviors, the Astartes from Suami refuse to quote-unquote waste the most precious resource of the Imperium, its citizens, in illogical purges. This is why the Sons of Iron almost never kill people under the age of 12 during their purges, instead transmitting them to Squalor Progenium or manufacturers to be educated or used. For the Sons of Iron, the Astartes must not rule above the normal humans, not even judge them, for their role is only to keep mankind pure of mind and body. Only those whose failure is so abject and blatant that they can't ever hope to hide it or be redeemed are the subjects of their wrath, or so they claim. But they have a tendency to see failure and abject weakness quite broadly. The Sons are also known for their distaste of mechanical warfare, preferring to resort to their own flesh and blood to defeat their enemies. They see tanks and knights as nothing more than lashes tying them down in the course of their duties. This blatant difference with the rest of their kin stems from the aversion that the people of Suami have to any machine which can move, quote-unquote, on its own. Despite the best efforts of techno-priests and Iron Remembrancers alike, the natives still see vehicles as potential weapons, or even infiltrators serving the robots. Finally, the most well-known tradition among the brothers is the tiring of metal. A trial underwent by any brother seeking to achieve a higher rank, who must eschew his armors, arms and equipment and then face one of the 11 robotic armies roaming on Suami during 1 month. Such ritual must be undergone once to achieve the rank of sergeant, 3 times for the Iron Sergeant's rank and no less than 11 times for any rank of officer, facing each Dutat only once in the process. Because of their cultural beliefs, the Sons of Iron eschew the use of tanks, save for the most direst moments, when every weapon and tool must be used to achieve success in a campaign. Such tendencies led naturally to the heavy use of Devastator, Centurions and Thunderfire cannons, even if the Whirlwinds are the most common tanks used by the chapter. The Sons also rely a lot on their orbital assault, which are known for their brutality, and used to create an opening where their forces can land, unleash the full fury of their firepower on the enemy's most vital locations, and then advance with an unrelenting and cold fury until the end of the campaign. Their unyielding resolve, combined with their mastery of firearms, explain why the Sons of Iron appreciate urban warfare. Their troops maneuvering to suppress all opposition without resorting to the most obvious ways of communications, using instead the houses, buildings and roofs to travel in the city. Because of their tactics, the first company is mainly comprised of Sternguard veterans, reputed for their mastery with their bolter, flamethrower, melter gun and other plasma guns. The chapter obviously possess Vanguard veterans, but only a handful, and they are commonly used as reinforcements, striking at the enemies who attempt to kill the Sternguards. Because of its youth, the chapter doesn't possess more than 5 Terminator Armors in the first company, but their users are seen as the epitome of the Sons of Ferrus Manus, unrelenting masses of cold hatred, bitter fury and unwavering resolve devoted to their Primarch and the Emperor above him. The Son of Iron chapter is also known for its lack of warcry, instead resorting to permanent, almost inaudible whispers of hatred heard on the enemy's communication lines. However, such calm, even cold behavior can disappear when, just like their Iron Hands forefathers, the Sons of Iron let loose their hatred and anger, becoming truly enraged angels of death, whose determination achieve even greater degrees. During those times, the Astartes use a wide variety of war cries. The chapter has continuously worked on the improvement and modification of their Terminator armor since its inception, hoping to achieve the same aesthetic appearance and innovations as their forebearers' ancient and now extinct Gorgon pattern Terminator armor. This powerful subclass of tactical dreadnought armor was notoriously hazardous, but an extremely powerful prototype, whose design was said to have been engineered by their Primarch Ferrus Manus himself. With the disappearance of the Primarch upon the black sands of Eastfarn 5, the remaining Iron Fathers lost the ability to refine the Gorgon pattern to reach its full potential. It took the Iron Remembrances of the Sons of Iron roughly 5 decades to ensure that their Terminator Armor design wouldn't lose in quality, compared to the more traditional patterns of tactical dreadnought armor, by constantly reworking the design and its technologically sophisticated components. They finally achieved, at least aesthetically, a near-identical Terminator pattern comparable to the ancient Gorgon pattern. The Sons chose to name their armor after their gene-sire rather than claiming a name of their own, thus the Neo-Gorgon pattern was born. Since the Sons of Iron aren't a crusading chapter, their fleet isn't as numerous as those of chapters traveling the Ocean of Stars. Yet, thanks to the wishes of the Adeptus Mechanicus at the creation of their chapter, the Astartes of Suomi possess vessels of great quality, despite their young age. Their fleet is comprised of 3 battle barges and 3 strike cruisers, which are all designed primarily for orbital assault, as it is through this tactical deployment that the younger chapter prefer to enter the fray of any battle. The chapter also possesses a light cruiser-class starship, 2 frigate-class and even a rare Viper-class scout sloop. The sole true oddity of this fleet is, perhaps, the fact that half of the spaceships still have to receive a name, for the Sons of Iron wish to name them after their own heroes and campaigns, both glorious and infamous. The history of the world of Suomi, as it is known by humans, began during the Golden Age of technology, when a great colonization fleet discovered this planet, the only one inhabitable in this system of 10 worlds. Thanks to their mastery of technology, the colonists soon created a paradise on this planet, a paradise that they kept secret from the rest of mankind, for the Suomi had severed all ties with the rest of their species as soon as they had arrived on this world. In a strange twist of fate, this isolationism would prove itself the greatest weakness of those people and their greater chance of survival in the future. The colonists destroyed willingly all the archives and information containing the knowledge of extra-system space travel, conserving only the knowledge necessary for the exploitation of the resources from the other worlds from their adopted system. The world of Suomi, as it then existed, was composed of 2 supercontinents, the northernmost called Kulma by the colonists and the southernmost Lampa. Those 2 continents, while disposing of extremely varied environments, were globally peaceful, for they were without any great predator and life were easy by nature, a fact which led the colonists in the path of personal pleasure, an attitude which should lead to their fall. The inhabitants of Suomi quickly discovered that their world was dotted by millions of years of old ruins. Indeed, this world had been an auxiliary world from the Necron dynasty of the Atunkar, a minor dynasty but with strong ties to the Triacat. The humans explored the crypts and defeated their guardians, claiming the relics and Necron technologies for their own use. Impressed by the mechanical guardians, they chose to craft their own, more and more developed robotic servants which allowed them to delve deeper into their own leisures, making an immoderate use of the wonderful plains, lakes and vales from their world. However, their isolationism, the Suomi never heard of the AI rebellion in the rest of the galaxy. Therefore, they continued to perfect their machines so all humans from their world could live life of wealth and opulence. The colonists thus created an AI, 2,000 years after their installation, which sole goal was to control the robots of the planet that they named Äiti Hyväntahtoinen, the beloved mother. Only some retrogrades inhabiting the Ironback Mountains, the greatest mountainous chain from the northern continent, continued to work and preserve the lifestyle of the first colonists, rejecting what they saw as a decadence, behaviors which could quickly reveal life-saving. Indeed, when the Age of Strife began, Äiti changed and considered that human beings were unable to preserve their own lives. Therefore, the AI conducted that only the transfer of memory data in robotic bodies would allow humans to truly live. Of course, organic beings should see their data expunged from erroneous codes and other error of programming. The mother sought their informations which would allow her to realize the project, going as far as scanning the Necron scripts, searching in their databanks until she got enough knowledge to launch the project she called Reborn. During thousands of years, the humans of Suomi were thus reduced into slavery by their own creations, and only a few groups managed to escape the first waves of capture, seeking refuge in the most inhospitable places of their world, such as the Ironback Mountains, the Scar of Night from Lamba, or the Lonely Marshes. There, the humans tried to rediscover the warrior technologies from their forefathers, which were never used before. In 759 M30, a scientist from the Ironback Mountains managed to rediscover the secrets of the atomic weapon and used this knowledge to create a bomb, which was launched on the data center from the Mother, where the memory and thought of the captured humans were conserved until it was purified and reconfigured to serve the Project Reborn. Following this attack, the Mother came to the conclusion that the remaining humans were corrupted beyond any hope of restoration for their memories data, and launched her armies on the humans' encampments, which proved to be resilient enough to remain unconquered, nor destroyed for the most part. Facing this dilemma, Ida came to a terrific conclusion that only a massive orbital bombardment of the planet, used to make it inhospitable to biological life, would allow her to get rid of the era of programming known as humans. Alerted of those plans, the humans used their lost spaceships to prevent the cataclysm by confronting the Mother's ships. But if they managed to destroy enough of those weapons to prevent the wipeout of all biological life on Suomi, they couldn't stop their ancient paradise from becoming a tundra, haunted by the machines and groups of human resistance gathered in desperate warbands. While on Terra, the Emperor launched the Great Crusade, the Suomi had to face the robots of the Mother, whose factories ensured that the climate of the world wouldn't change, liberating toxins and gas in the atmosphere, making Suomi a world of mom plains, festering marshes and mountains where only the highest peaks weren't covered in poisoned ice. During 170 years, the humans fought to survive in their enclaves, where even the robots couldn't dislodge them. However, the warbands were for the most part aware that the status quo wouldn't last, and that sooner or later the humans would be erased from Suomi. De facto, only the constant bearing of respirators and complete armors, isolating them from the toxins imbibing their world, prevented from death. Because of the growing despair, their actions became more and more radical, and a true disgust of weakness, be it mental or physical, appeared little by little. Those who suffered real or perceived weakness of body or mind were thus used as bait for the robots. However, the coming of the Great Crusade would change this world. Indeed, after more than 200 years of crusade, the 827th Exploring Fleet, composed of 3 vessels of the Imperial Army and a minor ship from the Iron Hand Legion, protecting a sacred text from their Primarch, the Parchment of Naerina, emerged at proximity of Suomi. Placing themselves in orbit, emissaries were sent to the locations where great concentrations of life forms were discovered, which is to say the human enclaves. Once there, the emissaries achieved the submission of the Suomi to the Imperium if they swore to free their world from the Mother, a condition quickly accepted by the armies of the Emperor, who struck at the basis of the AI with all their troops. Despite the resistance of the robots, the active bases of the Mother were all destroyed, and some representatives of the Mechanicum helped to limit the pollution of Suomi. After 2 Terran years, the fleet left Suomi, leaving behind only a few troops and a little template containing the Parchment of Naerina, which was copied by the Suomi, becoming one of the most sacred texts. However, even though the humans believed to be freed of the AI, secret bases built centuries before in the depth of the ocean or the deep part of the earth were activated. Each of the bases received a copy of the Mother, called Tytöt, the daughters, whose goal was to purge the world of the corrupted humans' data. Still, fearing the return of the invaders from space and isolated from the other daughters, each one should evolve as an independent entity, following schemas which, while only slightly divergent at the origin, became terribly opposed from one another, a true benediction for the humans of Suomi, who still weren't aware of the existence of the Tytöt. When the Horus Heresy began, Suomi, a world without importance in the immensity of nascent Imperium, was left largely isolated, and only some agents from each camp tried to convert this world to their camp. Only the Loyalists managed to succeed in this goal, and the Suomi gathered a militia that they sent on the battlefields among the Loyalist armies. The small brigades of Suomi riflemen proved quite good in the poisoned environment and were thus deployed on several minor battlefields, siding definitely Suomi on the side of the Emperor. After the heresy, this world continued to supply brigades to the Imperial Guard, even if the number of soldiers was always small. Yet, it was more the awakening of the daughters than its relation with the Imperium which marked Suomi. the AI revealing themselves after millenniums of preparation. In 546 M32, the robotic armies reappeared on Suomi, but despite the plans of each Tyttöt, the human resistance and the infighting among robots allowed the Suomi to survive and repel the invasion, without managing to locate the bases of the daughters. This is how the cycle which still exists on Suomi since the last 9,000 years was created. For all the few decades, the AI launch an attack, which is repelled. Only the coming of the Sons of Iron on Suomi saw the destruction of 2 Tyttöt, bringing down their number to 11, for the Astartes refused to destroy all of the AI, believing that they made the people of Suomi stronger and purer. The world of Suomi provided for thousands of years recruits to the Imperial Guard. Due to the state of the planet and humans dwelling, which only use of ecodomes is to protect livestock and agricultural fields from the atmospheric pollution, while habitations are carved beneath the earth or into the mountains and sealed. This recruitment was always done through highly confined tournaments, as a means to minimize the loss of lives, while ensuring that the youth of Suomi would be able to wage war on imperial battlefields. When the Astartes settled on Suomi, they kept this system, but made use of the world's newfound statute as an Astartes world to cease the sending of recruits to the Imperial Guard during the 50 years that the chapter needed to become fully autonomous, before allowing the creation of Suomi's Imperial Guard regiments anew. They have obviously strengthened the selection criteria, allowing entry into the Brotherhood, including survival tests outdoors and not in the human enclaves, to ensure that only the best of the Suomi children would join them. The Sons of Iron demonstrated their pragmatism by sending systematically the young people excluded from their selection into the guard of the Planetary Defense Forces, with a formal statement of the qualities of those recruits, a practice which explains that, while the best young men are recruited by the Space Marines, the quality of the PDF and the Imperial Guard recruited on this world didn't falter, quite the contrary. Among the numerous trials of those tournaments, it is the ones where aspirants must show their mental strength which are the most scrupulously observed. As for the Sons of Pharismanus, the fact that the young boys' bodies are weak and fragile has little importance when the genetic inheritance of their Primarch will make colossi out of them, while the weakness of the mind cannot be healed without arduous efforts, which would divert the brother of his duties. Thus, the aspirants must receive arrows in the legs without flinching, thrust their hands in jars full of the most disgusting vermin on Suomi without showing their disgust, or even intentionally break every bone of one hand one by one without hesitation or pain on their face. Only those whose determination is flawless and whose bodies are free from the slightest trace of mutation can accept to join the Sons of Iron in their celestial war.